Even though July is here, that doesn't mean that me and Tuck are finished planting. Today, we're going to share with you 10 crops you could still plant in July. Let's go! The first crop you could still plant in July are cucumbers. Even though we're heading into peak production when it comes to cucumbers, you can see how beautiful these plants are and how loaded they are down here. That doesn't mean there's not still time to get some cucumbers planted. You can see some beautiful ones here and more cucumbers over here. Check this out. Look how loaded these plants are. Fortunately, our cucumbers will continue to produce up until a frost. Around here, the first frost is around October 15th. That still gives us 100 days, well, over 100 days to get some cucumbers growing so we can get some fresh fruits. The fact that we still have over 100 days till our first expected frost is perfect because the typical cucumber variety only takes about 60 days from seed to harvest. One of my favorite varieties, the Socrates cucumber, this one only takes about 52 days from seed to harvest. So there's still plenty of time to get your cucumbers planted. You can either direct sow your cucumbers right into the ground, or you could do what I like to do and plant your cucumbers in cells like this, and then once they get 2 true leaves, you could transplant them into the garden. We've got Tuck over here hanging out in the shade. This guy's just chilling right now, but before he was out harvesting some of his own cucumbers. Let me bring you over to the spot. Check this out. Tuck came out and harvested this thing on his own. I find that pretty funny. Fortunately, we have so many cucumbers still on there, but it's a lot of fun when you can grow your food organically and the dog could come out, grab his own harvest. I could come out, grab my own harvest. We don't have to wash them because it's all organic, and there's so many cucumbers on here. There's plenty to spare. Also, when it comes to your cucumbers, the more you pick, the more you get. So Tuck's kind of coming out here and helping us out by harvesting some of these cucumbers before they over ripen. The next crop you could still plant in July are green beans. One of my favorite all-time varieties is the dragon tongue bean. Look how beautiful these beans are, and they taste amazing. The plants are absolutely loaded too. When it comes to your green beans, a variety like this only takes about 60 days from seed to harvest, so there's still plenty of time to direct sow them. It's hot in July, we all know that, so when I plant my green beans, I plant 9 per square foot, going by the square foot method, and then I cover that with a little bit of diced leaf mulch. This makes sure that the soil stays moist at this time of the year, and the green beans are strong enough to just push right through that mulch, unlike something like a lettuce seed, which has a little bit of trouble pushing through a mulch. When it comes to your green beans, you want to plant some varieties that are relatively quick cropping at this time of the year. You don't want to plant a variety like the red noodle pole bean. This one takes about 90 days from seed to harvest. So when it comes to planting green beans at this time of the year, just make sure you plant some varieties that will have enough time with basically how much time you'll have until your fall frost shows up. In July, there's still plenty of time to get some summer squash planted. Right here we have some zucchini. This plant looks amazing and it's just getting ready to start producing. And also over here we have some patty pan squash. Just like cucumbers, squash will continue to produce up until your first frost. And varieties like you have right here, this is the Englisher custard squash. This one only takes about 60 days from seed to harvest. It has a fantastic flavor. I have a few of these in a different spot where the fruits are actually ready to be eaten. When it comes to your summer squash, just like your cucumbers, the more you pick, the more you get. So I like grabbing them when they're young. They're a little softer, they're sweeter, and that's my favorite way to eat them. Even if you have plants like this that are already in production and doing really well, it's still a good idea to get another round of squash planted, because if your plants get a disease issue or some kind of pest issue or something, it's always great to have another plant on deck to replace it, to make sure you're always getting a good harvest of squash. At this time of year, you could either direct sow your squash into the location that you're going to be growing them, or you can do what I like to do and start them in seed cells. Make sure you use relatively deep cells because the seeds are large and the seedlings will be large too, and they could quickly get root bound. Once you see the seedlings get 2 true leaves, they're ready to be transplanted into the garden, where you could either put them in an open spot or you could replace a squash plant that might be struggling. One of the problems with starting seeds in July is that it's so hot, the soil dries out quickly, and that leads to poor germination. Another thing is when your seedlings do pop out of the ground, with constant sun beating on them, it can really stress them out. To avoid this, what I like to do is I like to use a shade cloth, a 40% shade cloth, and I use my hinged hoop house cover. I'll take this shade cloth, I'll put it over the plants just like this. This will allow the soil to remain consistently moist and allow my seeds to get better germination rates. Also, it will reduce the stress on those young plants and allow them to just grow really well and really healthy. I'll do this at the hot parts of the day when the sun really is beating down. Another thing I'll do is, after my cucumber plants have come out of the ground, to avoid some pest issues, what I'll do is I'll grab this insect netting and I'll cover my young seedlings with this insect netting. This way, the dreaded cucumber beetle can't get in and go after my young seedlings when they're super susceptible, which can cause a lot of damage to them. So 2 simple things I do to increase germination and to allow my plants to be super healthy by the time I get them into the garden. Also, if you're starting your seeds outside, you want to make sure you're removing the plastic covers when the sun comes out. If not, it can get really hot inside of these cells and prevent germination or possibly even kill your young seedlings. So make sure when the sun comes out, you remove the plastic cover. I like to take the plastic cover off after the seeds have sprouted. Me and Tuck want to do another giveaway to get some more of JP's secret stuff into your hands. Next video, we're going to announce the winner from the last giveaway. All you have to do is send an email to hello@teamgrow.us. Write JP and then guess a number between 1 and 500. I'm going to put it in a random number generator. Whatever number that kicks out, whoever was the first to send the email with JP and then the number on it will win a 4-pound bag of fertilizer. So you can get your hands on some organic, amazing fertilizer. You can see plants love growing with it. The next crop you can still plant in July are carrots. We're gonna grab one for Tuck. Hey Tuck, want a fresh carrot, boy? Let's move up here and grab one. So when it comes to your carrots, they really need to be direct sown. They do not like to be transplanted into the garden. This can be kind of tricky at this time of the year though, because the soil dries out so quickly, and carrots need about 1 to 2 weeks of consistent moist soil in order to germinate and get good germination on them. We'll let Tuck snack on this carrot. He loves his fresh carrots right from the garden. He's always looking for another snack. It can be tricky to get those carrots up. What I like to do is to use the carrot board trick. So this is for 1 square foot. I basically will plant my carrots 16 per square foot, water it in, and then I'll take this board and cover the top of the carrots with it. Then I'll come out after a week, every single day after a week, and check on the carrots. Once I see some of them starting to sprout, I'll remove the board. This helps a lot because, first off, your carrots do not like to be planted deep, so the soil will dry out quickly if you don't have a board on it. And then also, carrots do not really like pushing through a mulch. So you can't use like a diced leaf mulch or any kind of wood chip mulch, or the carrots won't push up through it. Using this carrot board trick, it allows the soil to stay moist and it allows you to get good consistent germination at a time of year right now when it's just super, super hot out. It's also really nice to plant carrots right now because when it comes to your carrots, they will continue to grow and also do well after a frost. And carrots actually get sweeter as it gets like colder out. Grabbing a carrot late in the season after frost, they're so sweet, they're so delicious, and there's nothing like it. That's why you need to get some carrots planted right now. Another crop we can still get planted in July is lettuce. Just like carrots, lettuce can be a bit tricky to get out of the ground because it doesn't like to be buried deep and it doesn't like having a mulch over top before actually sprouting. What I like to do is just plant lettuce in cells because it doesn't mind being transplanted into the garden. And then I'll just use this shade cloth like I had showed you to cover the section, and that allows me to get good consistent germination. If you don't have a shade cloth, you can also just start your seeds in an area that gets some filtered sunlight, like underneath a tree, just so the plants don't get scorched when they're young and that the soil isn't so dry that you don't get a good level of germination. Since it's so hot in July, it's also a good idea to transplant your lettuce into a location that maybe gets shaded by another plant or just is filtered shade in general, and that will kind of help the lettuce continue to grow well. Another thing you should do is you should plant some varieties that deal with the heat better. A variety like the slow bolt leaf lettuce is a fantastic one to grow in July because it's bred to bolt later than some of the other varieties, so it doesn't go to seed and you can still get a good harvest even though the summer heat is here. The next crop we can get planted in July is Swiss chard. Look how beautiful the color is on this one. So this nutrient-packed plant does a good job of withstanding the summer heat and also can tolerate the cold. If you have some Swiss chard planted already, that should continue to produce food for you up until a frost and even past a frost. It's one of those plants that grows and produces basically all season long. It's high value and I love growing it. If you don't have some Swiss chard planted, I suggest you start some in cells like I have right here and then transplant it into the garden. A cool thing about it is it can grow relatively well in some partial shade also. So if there's a spot where maybe you want to do good for something like cucumbers, they wouldn't excel in that location, then you could plant something like your Swiss chard. Bill Mollison would say that Americans just don't plant enough Swiss chard for how well it grows, how easy it is to grow, and how healthy it is. So when it comes down to it, you gotta get some Swiss chard in the ground if you don't have some growing already. The next crops we can plant in July, I'm going to encompass them all by saying they're brassicas. This has to do with our cabbage, our cauliflower, our broccoli, and our kale. Even though it's July, we still need to start prepping for our fall harvests. When it comes to our brassicas, it's a good time to get them started now. For some varieties that may take 80-100 days to reach full maturity. That's okay though, because our brassicas have more than 100 days to grow, because they'll continue to grow past a light frost and we'll still get some good food from them. When it comes to starting your brassicas, because the heat is here, I like to start my brassicas in trays underneath a shade cloth. This way I can monitor the temperatures and make sure I get good consistent germination and that the plants can do really well when they're young, so they have a bright future for them. It's also a good idea to get some kale going, because this kale will produce super late into the season past the frost. I have had even some varieties of kale that continue to produce all through the winter with no covering. So even though it seems early, and we're still grabbing some of our summer harvests, we always need to look into the future to invest now so we can continue to get food late into the year. Another crop we can still plant in early July is basil. Even though basil will take about 70 days to reach maturity, you can still get some planted, especially if yours has started to slow down and has really gone to seed. I do have a trick for that though, that I'll share with you. When it comes to basil, I like starting it in cells just like this. Then when it gets 2 true leaves, I'll transplant it into the garden. We just really want to make sure that we have basil producing. As our tomatoes start to come in heavy and continue to produce up until the frost, we want to make sure we have some basil to go along with that. When it comes to your basil plants, when they do start to flower like you see here, what you want to do is just pick that off. Then we can use this basil, but it will also encourage the plant to continue to bush out. This will delay the flowering process and allow this basil to continue to kick out more leaves up until the frost. If you stay on top of picking your basil, you might not need to plant another round like I just showed you, but if you haven't gotten any basil planted yet, you still have time to get some in the ground. The next crop to get planted in July is parsley. I have some parsley planted behind me that has gone to seed. So what I did was plant another round in a seed cell. It hasn't popped up just yet, but soon it will. Now is a great time to get parsley growing because it will continue to produce and grow late into the season because it's super cold hardy. So when some of your other herbs like basil have given up and the frost has killed them, parsley will keep kicking out food. Another crop we can get planted in July is red Malabar spinach. This isn't a true spinach, it's a vine and it's a tropical plant. I have some growing right down here, just popping out of the ground. Tuck's kind of in the way, looking for another snack. And I also have some more growing along the fence line. This thing grows really well in the heat because it's tropical. It thrives. It has thick leaves that are a bit mucilaginous, but they have a decent earthy flavor to them. It's a really good one to get planted though. When a lot of the other greens have started to slow down because of the heat, this one kind of takes over and just does really well and provides a lot of food in the peak heat of the summer. In early July, there's still some time to get some sunflowers planted. A variety like the Florenza sunflower only takes about 65 to 75 days from seed to flower. I have some sunflowers that are just starting to open up and some that have opened already. They look beautiful. They're like beacons for the garden. I've had some sunflowers grow over like 10 or 12 feet tall. It draws in all the insects and the bugs, the beneficial insects, so they're fantastic to have in the garden. If you want, you could direct sow your sunflowers, or you could even start some of them in cells like I did here. Just make sure you transplant them out of the cells after they have like 2 true leaves, because typically sunflowers don't really like to be transplanted that much. When it comes down to it, you have to have some sunflowers growing in the garden. Even if it's not a variety you can eat the seeds from, they're still great to have in the garden because they look beautiful, they bring in a lot of insects, and it just makes the whole garden overall a better setting. That's today's video, growers. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you got something out of it. Now that it's July, I bet you're like me and you just want to relish in all the harvests that are coming in. You put a bunch of work in spring. Now the brassicas are coming in, the tomatoes are setting up, you're getting cucumber harvests, you just kind of want to be happy with that and focus on your harvests. But you got to get out of that mindset. You need to think about the next round of harvest and invest in fall. The only way to continually harvest things is to continually sow. So now is the time to sow your things for fall, to start setting up. This way you can continue to harvest late in the season. You'll be so thankful that you did. Me and Tuck had a blast out here. It's really starting to get hot now that we're getting into July. It really is quite warm, but it's so much fun being out here. We have the cucumbers, such a cooling fruit to snack on. So it's a lot of fun when you can go out there and grab the harvest yourself. That's why we make these videos. We want you to get out there and grow some of your own food so you could have the great experience of just eating fresh fruit right off the vine, right out of the garden. There's nothing like it. Me and Tuck wanted to send a thank you to one of our new channel members, Richard Hahn. Thanks for being a part of Team Grow. Thanks for having your hand in everything we're doing out here. Make sure you hit the subscribe button down low, and also if you want to join Team Grow, hit the join now button or grab some merch over at teamgrow.us. Tuck and James will be back again real soon. We